We we could relax. Time means everything.
Ego.
So bring to mind the reason you decided to show up today. And based on that reason, generate a positive intention to use this time well. And combine it with a wish that it not just benefit yourself, but that it's going to ripple out to benefit those around you. We really never know all the tiny ways we impact each other. Being mindful that we're interdependent, interactive with others. And help us make wise choices with how we think, speak, and act. It's easy to forget to be gentle, to be kind, and even just to be aware that there are others around us. So bring to mind the people you might interact with later. And perhaps set an intention to be aware of them. Be aware that these are fellow beings who suffer and seek happiness. And the way we acknowledge them, the way we speak to them, the way we listen to them can matter. So let's recite the four measurables. It's page 34. Somehow it's not there. There you go. So just pause after each line to just picture these people that you'll be interacting with later. I mean, it could be the people that are in this room at the end of class, I mean, it doesn't have to be, you might be going home to a peaceful house with no one else. So, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Pause. Pause and think about the people you're going to interact with later. And wish them happiness and the causes of happiness. And you're included in this. We're part of the all sentient beings part. The second line, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. The mind of equanimity is a peaceful mind. So when we're caught up with attachment and craving, or we're caught up with aversion and craving, it's not peaceful. So the mind of equanimity is peaceful. Let's recite the Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer. It's on page 98. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. And thank you all for going to this end of the room. I appreciate it. My neck thanks you. So, hi, Nicole. Hi, Puerto Rico.
Hello.
Good to see you. Hi, Connie. Hello, everybody. All righty. Hi, Sherry. We could try to just sit here for an hour and think nice thoughts about other people. How far do you think we'd get before our mind would shift in a slightly different direction? Oh, that'd be pretty good. It's not necessarily that we'd start thinking negative thoughts about others, but we might shift to thinking about us instead. That would be the likely default. So working on being aware of where our mind is and then trying to go, what could I be thinking about that might be about others, How can I work on my mind to reorient it towards thinking about others? What are obstacles to that? The way we think, yes, the way we think. Why do we think about ourselves so much, just in general? What is it we're thinking about? Yes, the I rears its head. And what is the form it's usually taking?
It's a self-centered form.
Yeah. So like right at this moment, you might be thinking, wow, I'm not comfortable in this chair. We might be thinking, don't forget to pick up, whatever at the grocery store. We might be thinking, oh, the clothes I'm going to wear to work tomorrow clean. I mean, we think about stuff that is all revolving around us because, we just think that worrying about all that stuff, making sure we're ready for every moment of our day is somehow going to work out well. So it isn't that we don't need to plan. It isn't that we don't need to go to the grocery. It isn't that we don't need to have clean clothes. It isn't, none of that is an issue. It's just that making it the focus of our life, of all these little chores and all this kind of stuff, instead of it just being something that you get done and, it's kind of, can we say boring? It's monotonous, certainly, because most of us, we benefit by routine, don't we? Because it's a lot easier to remember routine. Yeah, I think that's true too. And this gets at what the teachings are constantly talking about becoming familiar. The purpose of meditation is to become familiar with something. So one of the things you want to get familiar with is what's going on in the mind. That's something you want to get familiar with being aware of. You want to get familiar with just noticing what's going on in my body, because these are clues usually to what's going on in our mind. But the purpose of getting familiar with it is we're comfortable with what we're familiar with.
It's safe.
It feels safe, like it's safe. And so then when we step out of that safety, we get nervous. And we think that's a bad thing because we try to avoid that. But when all of us, we've all tried new different things, right? Occasionally, maybe more so a few years ago, a few decades ago, but so we also know that, sometimes that nervousness about trying something new is a little touch of nervousness, because you don't know what's happening, because you're not familiar. And it's also a bit of excitement about, I wonder what this will be like, So we can develop a certain familiarity with trying new things, knowing that there's going to be a certain heightened experience just from the fact that you're not familiar with it. So we can be familiar with that feeling of, I don't know what's going on, and not panic from it. So familiarity is really a good thing. So having routines is a helpful thing. But we also need to be ready or flexible enough for whatever arises. So that when there's a break in the routine or something doesn't go well with the routine or however you want to phrase it, we're not particularly thrown by it. You know, and we don't need to get mad about it.
Keep your equanimity.
Yes, it's keeping equanimity. So it's like, so when we notice, when we're trying to be aware of our mind and we notice that we're irritated, if that's what we find, this is the kind of exploration we can do. Is it, oh, am I irritated just because my routine's been interrupted? And then you can say, do I really want to get irritated just because my routine's been interrupted? I mean, we want to recognize when we're just being inflexible. We're not, we're just like, oh, I didn't expect that. Because we don't have to be unhappy or irritated or anything just because something unexpected is happening. Because unexpected stuff, the trouble with unexpected stuff is what?
It happens.
Guess what? It's unexpected. Hence why we call it unexpected. And it's kind of funny wherever we ever think something's unexpected. It shows you how much we're grasping at permanence. Mm-hmm. So this is getting at this, we've been talking about how one interrupts. Well, that's not true. That's Thursday night. Oops. Okay. We've been talking about how the Buddha talks about how our misunderstanding of how things actually exist, our ignorance of how things exist, is actually at the root of our suffering and our disturbing emotions, that we're mistaken about how we exist. And one of these clues about how we're mistaken about how things exist are words like unexpected. Because what that says is we expect things to unfold in predictable ways. And we actually try to plan for that. We try to make that happen. Why do we have to try to make that happen?
Because if we don't, we'll get irritated.
What else?
Because things kind of do what they want to do.
Because it doesn't naturally happen. We're trying to force reality to what we want it to do. And we have to make it happen because it's not just going to happen on its own.
It also forces us not to make any changes if we can be in that little.
Well, we think that's safe, don't we? This is very familiar. It all feels safe. Okay. And do you ever at the end of the year kind of think, wow, okay, another year. Can you stand it? I mean, it's another year. And you kind of have same old, what's happening? Same old, same old. So we want to really kind of be curious about our level of attachment to feeling safe. Because there's growth in stretching ourselves. I used to be in a support group for children of alcoholics, and we'd have these phrases that we would learn to dislike, like another personal growth opportunity. And we kind of go, you know, so. But it's true that we want to really be aware of how much we just want things. Because I won't put this word in your mouth, this phrase in your mouth, but I know there's a part of me that thinks there's a way to get it just right and make it stay like that. You know, and that's what I'm aiming for. I'm finally going to be wise enough, or, you know, whatever. And it's just gonna, you know, I'll get it right and it will stay. Yeah. But the reality is there's no possible way, because everything's impermanent. Everything is in a constant state of change.
But reality is an illusion.
It's not, it's like an illusion. The reality is it's impermanent. Yeah, it's not that it isn't there. It's that the way it appears to us is solid and fixed, and that's not there. You know, it's not that things don't exist. It's that we mistake how they exist. And we really think that that assumption that we make is necessary for happiness. You know, that we're not safe, but the reality is we've got it backwards. As long as we're holding something to exist in a way that it doesn't exist, we'll be nothing but continually frustrated.
But we don't know what happiness is.
No, we don't really know what happiness is. We've never really experienced true happiness. Well, what do we experience?
Pleasure.
Sensory pleasures,
Moments of happiness.
moments of pleasantness, you know, and pleasure, and we experience moments of, you know,
Sometimes relief feels like happiness.
we sometimes what?
Relief
Relief.
feels like happiness.
Relief can be just feel like the best thing ever. And that's the suffering of change. You know, that's when something we don't like stops. And then we sit there, oh, this is nice. And then, you know, something else happens. It's just like the, you know, to me, it's the easiest way, you know, when you think about going out into the beach and you get really hot. And so you jump in the ocean and then you cool off. Oh, and then you get really cold and you jump back out, you know, and you just do this all day long. And this is what our minds do all day long. You know, we're seeking something that will be nice. And then, of course, that niceness about it wears off. You know, there's only so long that any sensory kind of experience that we like is going to last. You know. So what we want to do instead is focus on how we can have that inner experience of peace, of equanimity,
Joy.
and joy, to see what's there.
So actually focusing inward rather than out.
Always inward rather than outward. Because as long as we think that the happiness and suffering is coming from outside of us, we'll just be on this roller coaster, chasing after little brief moments.
You know, I've asked this before, but I forget what you said. The difference between equanimity and indifference.
Equanimity is the state of sort of being okay with whatever. Indifference is not noticing at all. It's not, you know, it's not caring, you know. Equanimity is really, okay, this tastes bad, that's okay. You know, oh, this tastes good, that's okay. It's just experience without trying to hold on to one experience and push away other experience. It's just, so this is what it is.
Difference is negative.
Indifference is, well, I mean, it depends on what you're being indifferent about. It can be negative, of course, if you're indifferent about the suffering of others. It can be negative, you know, but indifference is, I guess you could say indifference is sort of an active rejection of something. You know, it doesn't draw your attention even.
Could it be a way of protection?
Oh, all of our, we think every kind of, you know, like we think anger is a protection, you know. We think that our disturbing emotions protect us in some way. That's why we use them. We lash out with them, you know, or, you know, we're indifferent towards groups that we just don't have time to worry about, you know. So yes, we think it's a type of protection. We're wrong, you know, because we don't live in isolation. Not only do we not live in isolation, the Buddhists say we never get rid of each other. You know, we meet again and again and again, and life after life after life after life after life, you know, and we just need to figure out how to get along. So it's just, it's not, it's just ironic to me that the way we respond to this sense of self and other is to keep this self over here, all guarded, as if we don't need other. I mean, can you imagine being on the moon by yourself? No living creatures. Would that be fun?
It's fun.
Well, yeah, we need air too, but you know, but if you ignore the air part, I mean, we really need each other for everything. You know, if we have a space colony, they're going to need a lot of people here working for it. It's not going to just be up there. But I mean, this, yep.
Or on a desert island.
Yeah, but desert islands at least have fruit and maybe creatures walking around.
But on the subject of being like completely isolated, not around anybody that you have to get along with.
Right. You know, but, you know, like even then, as long as they're living beings, we have to get along with them. You know? So, you know, you take it even one step further and try to imagine being alone in a place that doesn't have anything alive or any sentience. Might have plants, but it doesn't have any, you know. So you start talking to what? The volleyball? Is that what he started talking to? So, but it's, so we try to protect this desire to not be isolated by isolating ourselves, by protecting our heart, by keeping people, you know, at a certain distance, by having all sorts of defenses to put up, you know. So the idea of trying to keep our hearts open and to recognize, heart mind's the same word, you know, in Buddhism, in most Asian languages. But so realizing there's no lack of room. There's always more room. No one has to, you know, get outside of the heart circle. It's not necessary. But we really kind of feel like, I'm sorry, there's only so much room. And that's true in particular ways. What way is it true that there's limits? Time. So we can't be everybody's best friend. We don't have time. But can we care about everybody who walks through a room with the same respect we care about our friends? So we can do that. We don't have to think about everybody in the planet all the time. We just have to be open so that if they come within our circle of concern, our immediate ability to be of help for, to, you know, whatever, that we can treat them with sort of equanimity. We don't have to like them to treat them with respect. You know, because this is about inner happiness is about how we are, not how somebody else is. It's about how we are. Are we happy, content, okay with how we are? So this is one of those things that when you go to bed at night, you can, you know, and you kind of think, I wish I hadn't been so dismissive of, you know, or I wish I'd answered that question. I wish I hadn't been rude to the, I don't know, whoever, the cashier. It's that in all religious traditions have some, you know, little catchy phrase, you know, treat others as you wish they'd treat you, you know, that kind of stuff. None of those rules have, unless of course they don't treat you well. They don't have that catch, you know, this disclaimer. Yeah.
I was going to Publix, and as I was coming out, I noticed a man who was homeless. He had a little jar, and I thought to myself, I'm gonna give him some money. But then as I started to approach him, he started doing some strange things. So I didn't do it.
Mhm.
But I felt guilty. I felt like I felt bad that I hadn't gone over there anyway.
Is it necessary to feel bad about it?
No, but that came up. That's
Yeah.
what I
So
felt.
you want to work with that. That came up. It doesn't mean it's true. You know, so then you have to go, okay, I was a little scared then. Wasn't sure if I could handle whatever, you know, was said to me or whatever.
I just thought I was protected.
Yeah, you were. That's true. What we want to be able to do is, we're not Buddhas yet, right? We have limitations. We want to see opportunities. Sometimes you have that opportunity and you stretch and you kind of take the risk anyway. You know, you kind of think, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And if the worst that can happen is tolerable, you know, we can try it out, okay? The worst that can happen is that you get mugged, you know, maybe you won't try it out, you know? But what can your heart do? It can love. It can send out, you know, compassion, you know, and the wish that, you know, that this,
But he wasn't trying to kill
yeah, you can do that even with the, yeah, you know, but it's just that we can have compassion. Where did your mind go?
Uh-oh.
And it went to
Person's a little
guilt.
Weird. I'd rather not.
Okay. And then you felt guilty. Yeah. Instead of just feeling compassionate for yourself and this other person, you know, this is what we want to work on, because the guilt doesn't feel good. You know, it's useless. It's just, you know, like, oh, let's carry around baggage, you know. But the opportunity to just go, okay, I'm not ready for this step, you know, maybe I'll observe others and see what happens when they come up to him, you know, whatever. But mostly it's just sending back, it's that Tonglen. May I take your suffering away from you and maybe send peace back to you, you know. really wishing you could take their suffering away, wishing that you could give them happiness, not writing off the person in your head.
Well, again, equanimity is
Yeah.
the answer to it. No aversion, no attachment.
Right. It's just, okay, this is unpleasant, when you started talking, and you're thinking, oh, this is not pleasant, It's just, okay. It isn't that we can't make choices to guard against some harm, but we want to really be aware, when are we doing it based on reason or when we're doing it based on just fear? Now, if a tiger is coming at you, I recommend that you listen to the fear, So this is still just a, we need to find that space of going, I don't want to go to aversion. I don't want to go to grasping. And I don't need aversion towards myself for not just going up to the guy going, how can I, take you to lunch, And some people do that. I am not one of them yet. So it's just this, we have, but it's like, but we can keep our, like we want to grow our hearts. Someday I want to be able to do that. What's required for that? I'd like to be Reuben's size. I admit that I think that would be helpful. So, someday, if I keep working at it, I won't worry about that. It won't come up. I'll just be focused on how I can help, and I won't be afraid. Doesn't mean I would do stupid things. I don't recommend walking down dark alleys at night looking for people who can be helped. And really, every time we think something really negative about ourselves, we want to remember that this is not a mind we want to practice. Just like we don't want to be ugly, judgy about so-and-so, we don't want to be ugly, judgy about ourselves either. We want to use information to develop our wisdom. We don't need to use it to develop our self-loathing.
Thank
you. Because that's not necessary.
And this is very helpful for dealing with adverse aspects of life.
Right.
People. Also, things, weather, animals, and different things as well.
This is what's nice, is there's all sorts of opportunities in our daily life that are easy to practice on, like the weather. Right. And you can see how well I do with that. And cockroaches.
Hey, I have a tremendous fear of them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pat myself on the back. This morning I saved one.
Yay! I rejoice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that was hard for you.
They scare the hell out of me.
Yeah. I feel your pain. But yeah, so we have these opportunities and we think it's no big deal, but it is a big deal to be able to do something kind when you're afraid. That's hard for us to do. So, it's so having equanimity and then going that step further to saying, oh, I can actually be of help. Because if I don't rescue this cockroach, it's either going to die from the poison that's in my house because my house is treated for bugs, or, my partner's going to step on it. Or my partner's going to ask him to kill it.
What do you do?
Yeah. That's indifference. you know. But we can, and we can start with just simply, I'm not going to kill it. I might not be able to catch it and take it outside, but I'm not going to be actively involved in the death of that animal. So, so we have to step by step, but it's amazing how these little shifts can become great big shifts later on, where it just, you cease to be afraid simply because something you don't like comes into the room or into your view. No.
What about righteousness?
Righteousness, how would you define righteousness?
Well, for example, when I think that person should be more like I would be, would act the way
That you're
would be.
acting in a wholesome way, and this person is not
Is
and
not.
should act like I am.
Right.
Okay. So we can do assessments like that, where we think, oh, I can see the disadvantage of those actions, or the unskillfulness of those actions, or the harm that can be caused by those actions. Judging another person, however, is not particularly useful.
Mm.
What
Doesn't feel
good, huh?
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good,
Mm.
and it can affect the way we treat others. As if somebody whose habits are not, what you would consider skillful, doesn't mean we can treat them unskillfully. Because, hey, because that's how karma just keeps going. We create, we respond unskillfully to unskillful actions, and we just, and it just keeps that chain going. So being able to just take it in that, I'm glad I'm not doing that. I rejoice that that's not my habit, and have compassion for somebody else who doesn't recognize that. Because it doesn't feel good to, good grief, none of us, unless we're Buddhas, and even Buddhas, we don't get to see perfect Buddhas because we don't have enough merit. So you're not going to meet anybody who's going to always be acting exactly as you think they should. So you've just eliminated the entire, human race, as possible, worthy companions.
Respecting the person's reality.
Respecting the fact that we don't know what's going on in their mind. We have no idea. We don't know what their background is. We don't know what their opportunities have been. We don't know anything. But what we do know is that we know we're grateful we don't act that way. And so we can rejoice about that. And we can thank our teachers, whoever taught us, our parents, our grandparents, whoever, encouraged us to go in this direction instead of that direction. But judging the other person gets us into, there's no truth to it, because we literally don't know what's going on with them.
We're just making a story.
Yeah, we're making a story up. I act better than you'd act, and that's a road we don't want to go down on, because that's afflicted pride.
And that's not going to help him out.
Doesn't help anything. It's good to rejoice and feel good about it, so you repeat the behavior you think is skillful. It's also good to check up. Am I correct in thinking that's skillful? But it doesn't help. In fact, it's the opposite of help, because it increases the practice of aversion.
And for the other person.
You can't.
If you have empathy for the person, there are more chances that empathy would have positive benefits for that person than judging.
That's right. Having empathy or compassion for the person is a condition that allows the opportunity to help them to arise. Because what happens when we think that, we become sort of, that's that upside down pot. We think, oh, they're not worth anything. We've just made that decision, and that's never true.
So again, practicing equanimity.
No, yeah, this is why not giving any power to our feeling response of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, not saying that they are absolutes. It's absolute that you feel pleasant. It is not absolute that there's a condition. Because what does the teaching say about what is the condition for the pleasant feeling? I mean, what is the cause of the pleasant feeling? Previous positive actions. Has nothing to do with the moment. I mean, that's not a direct, the moment is a condition for that to arise, for that to ripen. But it's not actually, we think it's all from outside, and it's not. It's from all our habits, it's just from all the, everything, our filter, and it's from our past actions, our negative feelings, what that's from. We think it's from that person over there.
So it's memory.
Well, it's karma. It's that this is a condition that is allowing a negative seed to ripen, which is a habit. Like say, you don't like to hang around people that, are homeless. That's a habit, So that's a condition for that unpleasant feeling to arise. So in that sense, in that way, it's memory, but it can be from way beyond memory. But it's our past actions. It's the fact that we keep responding in the same way, aversion, because I don't like what's unpleasant. And so then, it's like, I know that one of the teachings, or at least, in monasteries, they remind you that your teachers don't have to entertain you, that you can learn a lot from someone who you find it very hard to stay awake with, but they may know a lot. They may have a lot of wisdom. So listen up, kind of thing. Don't go to class just to, be entertained. So that kind of thing, So it's sort of the same way. You don't want to develop the habit that thinks, I have to be entertained in order to listen. That if they're not interesting, and that talk about a subjective thing, then I'm not going to bother. We develop habits of, what that means is I have to find it pleasant in order to learn. As opposed to unpleasant is also an opportunity to learn. Instead of running away or changing the channel or going to do,
Especially if there's an emotion attached.
When there's an emotion attached to it, that's not equanimity. See, that's what happens. We have this pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. The next moment of thought it brings up some sort of either in the, attachment line of thinking or the aversion line of thinking, So the feeling itself is just the feeling.
So do the Buddhas no longer have neutral, they don't have feeling?
They experience everything directly. So I'm not sure they don't have feeling. I'm not sure that's correct. I think they have feeling. But guess what kind of feeling they always have? If our feeling is a result of our karma, guess what kind of, it's all. So they say the state of an enlightened mind is bliss because they're not creating the cause for anything else.
Well, the Dalai Lama.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But he himself say he gets angry, he shouts at somebody, but then he lets it go.
Yep. Yeah, the Tibetans, many Tibetans feel that he's, an emanation of Avalokitesvara, the compassion Buddha, Chenrezig. We don't have the merit to see a Buddha. Doesn't mean they're not here. We just can't tell. We don't have enough merit. And we wouldn't believe it anyway. We'd find something. Because from our point of view, it'd be like, see, he wears glasses. So.
If we disagree with somebody's actions, it's difficult to change their mind and change their actions. However, we can set a good example.
That's really all we can do, is just be an example of what we think is skillful action. Because we can't change other people's minds. We can encourage, just like when you're raising children, you can encourage behaviors, you can discourage other behaviors, but you can't make their minds think a certain way. You can only be a good example, you can teach, all that kind of stuff. So letting go of this habit of thinking we can change someone else, that's not in our control. And so letting even go of judging other people, that doesn't mean about actions. We need to assess actions, decide whether, am I going to follow their lead or not? But we don't have to criticize. We don't have to talk about people. We don't have to say, we need to understand that just possibly we still don't know anything about the person.
It's liberating.
It is liberating. If you just quit worrying about your opinion of other people,
Tendron,
yes.
and also for me, it's backwards. At least I'm very unskillful many times. So I hope other people give me the benefit of the doubt that I do have positive attributes. So I have to give them the same, right? Because I want it for myself.
Well, and it only makes sense. Like I said, we're not Buddhas. So, and no one else is either. So it's one of the things that we can feel comfortable about is if we're willing to give others the benefit of the doubt that this isn't permanent who they are, this isn't their identity, this action, then neither are we. That if we can think that, they can think that too. But mostly we need to think it because we can't control what other people think. And we don't have to. The reason we go through the purification process of having, remembering what we've done that's unskillful and then really regretting the harm that it's done to ourselves and others is about that, and then trying to come up having a remedy for it, whether it's, to kind of remember it so that when we pause the next time, we won't choose to do the same thing because we recognize it as unskillful and that it leads to suffering. But that regret, this is where we have that condition to apologize if it's appropriate, all that kind of stuff. It's not that we don't try to take responsibility for our unskillfulness, when we recognize it. And sometimes that's awkward, isn't it? When we have to go, I was a jerk. Sorry about that. It was all about me, not you. Whatever, that again comes back to this equanimity towards the self. That, okay, I'm not perfect.
Yet.
Well, yeah.
The work in progress.
It's such a work in progress. Some days are less progressive. So, but being able to understand, this is all this about, like, so understanding that we are ignorant, not only of how things exist, like and they appear to us to not exist the way they actually exist, because they appear sort of fixed, and, we can trust that from this moment to the next moment, the people around us will all look pretty much the same, but that's a weakness in our eyeballs, not a weakness, not a fact about others, that they're not changing moment to moment, because they are changing moment to moment, so things appear in a way that they're not. That is a result of our sensory abilities. Okay. What was my point?
What appears to be is usually not.
Yeah, so we need to like start from that assumption that my perspective is full of my filters, which are ignorance, bias, attachment, aversion. These are not reliable states of mind.
They usually happen when we're very young.
What?
These conditions.
These habits that we develop? I would say since they've been forming since beginningless time. We've had them for a long, long time. Then in each life, there are conditions that we're experiencing in that particular life that reinforce certain habits, that bring up some habits, don't bring up other habits, and it's just, those are the conditions. So we're like little sponges, pick up new habits. And probably not new, but it kind of like becomes a condition to practice that habit more. We want to have the strength of habit that in the future, that even if we're in conditions that were used to be ones that would trigger certain unskillful responses, no longer do, or we don't act on them.
We, instead of developing habits, develop wisdom.
We want the habit of wisdom. That's because it's also a mental event that goes from moment to moment to moment. So compassion, love, without attachment and aversion and craving and grasping, kindness and patience and generosity, all those things are, there's nothing wrong with those.
Unless you get attached.
It's the attachment that's wrong, not the love, not the compassion. This is why we want to, slowly remove the attachment and the aversion, because that's what makes it not wisdom.
So that develops expectation.
What does?
Whatever habits we have develops expectation.
Well, because we're doing them based on our, our thinking that, first of all, that we can control what happens to us. First error, but that somehow, if this condition happens, then my reaction of this is the only way that's gonna protect me, or gonna da 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 da. And then so that's where we have to bring our wisdom going. Let's look at that and see if there's any truth to that. Because when they're habits, they're just automatic. You're not really thinking about it. It's such a habit. It's just what comes up. It's a mental habit, but it's just what comes up. So we want to be able to interrupt that long enough to just be able to explore. Maybe it's not true that the mind of anger is just a powerful mind that gets me what I want. Maybe it's actually an unpleasant, suffering state of mind. Maybe there are better ways to recognize, things that are unjust, or,
It's called equanimity.
And wisdom. Equanimity is not enough when you're trying to change like a law. You want equanimity, understanding that your happiness or suffering isn't dependent on the law being changed. you know, or whether you feel good, just a second, Elaine, or whether you feel good about the process of being an activist. It's hard work, you know. So, but we also need wisdom to come into the picture. It's a different state of mind than equanimity, but it's in there. You can't have equanimity without wisdom. So, and all sorts of things. Yes. Elaine, what's your question?
I wonder if you could address a good way to let go of resentments.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you mean by good way. I know you mean effective.
What do you call a skillful way?
Okay. So it can be helpful to try to make yourself a list, whether it's a physical list or a mental list, of what you think resentment's giving you.
What's a resentment?
Resentment is just something like you've been holding on to some sort of that you weren't happy with something, or you were, and then maybe you were angry about something, and over time it gets stronger and becomes more pervasive about something, like, so it's not just that you get angry, you resent that it's even happening, you resent the sources of that suffering. So whether it's usually a person, so you resent, but you resent having to be put in that spot again, or but it's over time. It's built up over time. Is that describing your state of resentment, Elaine? Yes. Okay. So what do you do with that? You really need to look at, what do you think you're gaining by resenting it? So you might think, you might write down.
Nothing. You don't gain anything, or it's painful.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to put that on the con side of your list. It gives me, I'm suffering, it's painful, but there's something in it for you. You wouldn't hold on to it if there wasn't something into it. There's some belief about it that you believe, like, I'm right. That's a favorite, and they don't know it.
It enforces I.
It reinforces the I. It reinforces your view of how things exist. It reinforces this idea that you can fix your happiness or suffering by changing external things. And that's not true.
I'll change it.
Yeah. You can change your mind. That's what's nice.
That's you.
I know. So but you really want to look at what you're holding on to. Yes. Puerto Rico. How do you pronounce your name again? Somebody help me.
No, Puerto Rico is just good enough, it's good. So about maybe 5 minutes ago, maybe someone said that love or compassion is not wrong, but attachment is wrong. And I know you have probably said maybe 100 times what the attachment mean, right? Maybe I forgot. So can you maybe say it on a little bit on attachment? So I'm gonna write it down this time, so I can.
Okay, good plan. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So attachment in the context of Buddhism is seeing something that you find appealing and exaggerating its good qualities, and that you think, then you can increase it to going beyond attachment. You can go to, craving, so you want more of whatever this object is, and then grasping, thinking you have to have it in order to be happy. So it can just gets worse and worse and worse. So when you have attachment mixed with love, you get that, I want you to be happy as long as you're happy with me. you know, not if you're happy with, you know, our neighbor's wife,
Like fatal attraction.
like fatal attraction. Yeah. And even ordinary attraction. So, but I mean, you know, I mean, it's that, you know, like with, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I just can imagine that when kids are starting to develop, you know, their willfulness and kind of like they get to decide and you don't like what they're deciding. Yeah, kick them out. You know, and you try to manipulate them at first to kind of get them into your point of view, and that doesn't work. But then having to let go, you're letting go of attachment. You're not letting go of love. You still love the child, but what you're letting go of is your attachment to what you think should be their focus, whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that's all about you. Our attachment's all about us. It's really not about the other person or whatever we're attached to. It's not about the chocolate cake. It's about us. No.
Doesn't that depend on the age of the child?
No.
No.
Nope.
So if a little child wants to go.
Oh, you get to decide because you're the adult. But there's something different about, haven't you ever had that thought? Because I've had this thought about a spouse. You know, it's like, I do not want to be married to someone who wears that. I don't want my child to go to school in that. Please don't go to school in that. Please, you know. So you just make sure you buy everything that the kid wears so you'll like whatever they wear. But of course, they're going to put two things together that go together. I mean, I'm exaggerating this, but you know what I mean? This is, you know, throwing in your attachment and aversion on top of the love and care and all that. So it isn't that as a parent, there are certain, you know, you are responsible for them. So you want, you know, it said you want to choose your battles. The clothes might not be very important. Teaching them how to cross the street is, you know. So, but that attachment of thinking, I don't want a kid of mine, you know, I don't know. You think about history, you know, there are all periods in history where, oh my goodness, you know, parents try to get their kids never to be this or never to be that. Never, you know, we have all these rules.
Like the music thing.
The music, oh yes, music is good.
Can't believe they listened to that.
Yeah. Well, our kids thinking today. Yeah, you know, so all that stuff. But that is just our perspective. So that's the difference. Attachment is an exaggeration of what we think is good. You know, so we love all the good things about our kid, you know, and we're attached to them. And when they stop doing those things and they start doing something else, you know, we can get mad. You know, aversion can also be in there, you know, but attachment is just that exaggeration. Aversion is the exaggeration of the negative stuff. That's why we're averse to it. And again, it's from our point of view. And it's an exaggeration. And what happens is when you're exaggerating the good stuff, it's like infatuation. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger until they're perfect. And then anything that's done outside of that perfection just crushes you. You know, I mean, that's what you're setting up the condition for. You know. And aversion is just thinking there can't be anything good. Let's see, like there's nothing good about a person who has a tattoo. You can't have a tattoo. I'm sorry, tattoos say nothing but bad things about you. I mean, this, you know, this is how we can think. You know,
So you can't have clarity with attachment.
Wisdom cannot be present with any disturbing state of mind. It is not, they're not compatible.
Mhm.
So when there's attachment present with love, there's not wisdom. This is why we had no trouble really wanting our children to be happy, but we might not really care if their children are happy because it's mixed with attachment. There's no, and there's no wisdom there. There's no equanimity there. There's no thinking about how, if every child is happy, how much better the world is. I mean, if we intellectually go there, we'll think that. But we don't operate from that place. What do you think? So understanding when we're angry, impatient, greedy, judging, craving, wisdom cannot be there. So that's our first clue. Pause, because you're not reliable in those moments.
This is such a big thing.
And really understanding that can help us pause and then make better choices. Even if the choice is, I don't know what to do here, so I'm gonna back off.
On this one.
Yeah. Yes, Harai.
Yeah. So just to make sure that I understand slightly correctly. So can I say that saying my child is the sweetest kid versus every child is the sweetest child? So the first one has attachment and the other one is the love. Can I say did I understand correctly? So
Okay. Yes, we can say, but I would say more likely, what would be more accurate is to say, my child does the sweetest things.
Right.
Because there's some moments that not so much.
Right.
So that's an exaggeration. When we think, that is who they are. None of us. That's one of those, that's ignorance. Thinking that, there is an essence of me that's permanent, that's this, that's that, But, being, enjoying the fact that your child has a habit of being sweet, and, that's wonderful. But we want to, really understand that saying someone is sweet does not equal that's who they are. Because then when they're acting out, then we kind of see them as, okay, now you're a monster. And we just don't want that habit of mind. That's
Right.
it's not accurate and it's not useful. We just want to go, okay, I love you even when you're acting this way. I want you to be happy even when you're acting this way, but this way is not the way to get it.
Right.
Does that help at all?
No, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good. No problem. So it's not used in the same way we use it in Western psychology about this idea that we need to have what is it with babies and attachment? We need that bond. What do we call it? Attachment disorders if they don't have it. So, but it's not talking about that kind of relationship, because yes, aren't we all glad that that someone in our lives was attached enough to, that we're still here. So, but sit up straight, woman. There goes the neck. And it's this kind of thing that when we feel certain, that feel, I am sure that that's what they were thinking, or I'm sure I'm right, or those minds are grasping at an I. You're grasping at a self. And nothing exists that way. you know? It's not whether that your opinion is correct or something. It's that I am right. And so when that has arisen, that kind of mind, we're inaccurate. We're exaggerating something. We've lost the plot. So whatever follows that, whatever story that we make up from that, it's fabrication. You know?
But isn't that a good time to look for the?
Yes, that's a good time to go, so that's what an inherently existent I looks like. When they have, Thubten relates a story in that, in Searching for the I, one of the volumes of this, I don't know, 9 volume series she's involved in. Anyway, where she says she was meeting with His Holiness with a group of students one time. And so the monk that was, you know, bringing them into the room where His Holiness would meet with them, said, you know, encourage everybody to just keep moving like I do. Move down the line, sit on the farther, you know, so that there's room for everybody. And so everybody gets in there. And so they all take their seats, and His Holiness comes in and greets everybody. And he gets to Thubten Chodron and says, just so you know, I think you're in my seat. And she said, I was so embarrassed, but that was the I, you know, it's like, oh, this is that self-grasping I, because of course, she's not a seat stealer. So, you know, but in that moment, that I is that's superimposition that we do constantly, making the self more than it is.
Like what I experienced yesterday was like, well, that person was disrespectful, but I felt disrespect. I felt not respect. Yeah. So I identified with whatever the person did.
Yeah, and then you actually created an I that can be disrespected. Right, you know, and so it's a two-parter. You know, we've already got an I that we're, you know, catering to, and sometimes we trash, you know, all those things, but then somebody else has the nerve to, you know, yeah, we don't say that about when they praise us. Feel free. So, but that's still the grasping an I. Yeah.
You have a computer there,
right?
And it's got an Apple sign.
Yep.
You just move the screen. Before you move the screen, there was a reflection of the red, and I'm sitting here thinking, how did she get the red on that apple?
Yeah, it's inherent there, you know. It is. I didn't know it was reflective because you see, I can't see it.
No,
it's like not for me at all. But it's
a good example of illusion.
Yes. And it's that reflection thing that we, you know, it's not that there isn't a reflection of a face in a mirror. It's that there is no face in the mirror. It isn't that there isn't something that exists there. It's the way it appears to exist isn't true. You know, which is why it can take children and take pets a little while to learn. You know, they touch it, you know, because first of all, they don't know what they look like. So they, you know, I think they're touching someone else. No. But we're operating all the time as if what appears to us is in the mirror. It's not just, you know, a reflection of our past actions. So it's not, you know, it can't exist that way. That's what's interesting, is the way we hold things to exist is impossible. So we need to really understand what is that? What is it that we think how they exist? So that's why when the I arises, we want to go, okay, what does that feel like? What am I thinking? What is it? Because that's what you want to negate when you're trying to perceive how things actually exist. Because what we're trying to prove to our minds is that nothing inherently exists. There is no, self that can be pointed at, identified, held in a, more than an instant, it's constantly changing. There's no self that is separate from this body and mind. There's a bunch of mental and physical events. There's not something extra over here, that is me. I know me, And it's actually freeing to not have that, because then you're not stuck. Anything is possible. Everything is possible. Yeah. And what do we do with the kaleidoscope sometimes? We also fix it. People go, oh, that's so beautiful. And they make it permanent. Well, like taking a photograph. How many times do we take a photograph going, I want this moment to be permanent? We don't think that way. But it's a habit of mind, isn't it? It's just like, kind of cracks me up.
Grabbing at a certain moment.
Yeah.
Is that why people keep birds in cages?
Is that why people keep birds in cages? Absolutely. It's mine. Then it's mine. This, I don't understand why this apple's not mine. And that apparently is for you guys. I paid a lot for that apple. So, anyway, all right, out of time. Oh my goodness, we have one more Sunday. Let's hope it's not the last Sunday of all time, because that would not bode well for me. So, anyway, all right. Is this helpful? Okay. All right, good. Let's see what I do next. What am I trying to do? Oh, it's already open. It's like I'm holding my glasses. All right, go to page. So what are our announcements this week? We have Medicine Buddha Puja Tuesday night at 7. We have the last class on karma and afflictions on Thursday night at 7. We have next Sunday is me. And then the following Tuesday is Venerable Amy. Huh?
Tuesday and Thursday, and going. Tuesday and Thursday, sure. She'll be talking about don't give up, how to keep our hearts open in the face of adversity.
Is that a week from Thursday?
That would be on Tuesday.
Tuesday, that's what I thought.
Yeah, Tuesday 23rd and 25th.
Okay, so next week, check the calendar, because it's different days of the week that there'll be class. So Venerable Amy will be here on a week from Tuesday. And she'll also be here on Thursday, and then she'll be here on Saturday and Sunday. So I don't know what else to say. She can carry a tune, I can say that. It's lovely. So and then and then Venerable Keldon comes in June. So
we're trying to figure out what we're going to do in May.
I don't know what you're going to do in May. I know that there are going to be classes on Sunday of some sort. I know Rebecca's thinking about doing a discussion meditation on the foreign measurables, so look for the calendar, so I don't know. But really support Venerable Keldon when he's here. And that means lots of things, it means like remembering that maybe he doesn't have a car. And so like during the week, maybe, if you're going out or just you're free in the afternoon or in the morning, you can, contact him and say, do you need a ride anywhere? So there'll be obviously drivers arranged for the teachings, but there are other times. And if you have free time during the day, that might be something you can offer to him. Whatever. I don't know that he's seen sites in Florida at all. So if there are things that come up, he's from Brazil, so he won't melt like I do, but I'm sure he gets hot too. It's just, so, so anyway, just things to keep in mind that, be excellent opportunities to get to know him better by driving him around.
So you'll be cool during the summer.
Absolutely. Yesterday, I volunteered to go to Colorado for the summer because there's a center there that needs some help. So I thought, I'll volunteer to go. So anyway.
Tendron, are we going to dedicate?
Yes, we're going to dedicate now. Yeah, I just have to do all the meeting stuff. You can turn off the recording.